Welcome to the Creative Cast. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, podcast producer, coach, and CEO of Wildfire Creative. Are you struggling to grow and monetize your podcast? Want to learn more about starting your own podcast? Are you looking for the secrets behind the business side of podcasting? Well, friends, you are in the right place. Here on the Creative Cast, I'm going to be sharing all the tips and tricks on all things podcasting for the faith-based podcaster. Each episode is going to contain powerful information to help you get started with your own podcast, learn the secrets of building a business, and of course, growing and monetizing your podcast. All right, y'all, without further ado, let's get started. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the last episode of Creative Cast. I'm just kidding, for the year. This is the last episode of 2022, not the last episode ever. But it feels so weird to say that. This year, so many transitions this year. We started a new business model. We had a complete rebrand going from Tammy Munson Creative to Wildfire Creative, which I'm so glad that we did. We added several new team members to the team, as well as clients. So much stuff this year. Even experienced some setbacks with growing a business, thanks to the economy and some other factors out there in the world. And that's okay. These things happen. Not everything is perfect. Not everything goes the way that we want to in our personal life and in our business. But thankfully, I had a wonderful coach, my friend Allie, who helped me get through that really tough time where the panic was starting to set in and going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And we made it through that season. So I'm very, very glad for that. And, I was kind of looking back over this year, like just within podcasting, and there were so many things that brought podcasting to the forefront. There are movies and TV shows being made about podcasts. Hello, Only Murders in the Building. But there's also podcasts being made about TV shows and movies being made about episodes of podcasts. And it's just so amazing, so wonderful. I never thought that back in 2005, when I first discovered this, that this would be the way that it would go. But I love it. So, ladies, it's time to wrap up 2022. Sayonara. And I so look forward to ringing in the new year. It's going to be a great year. I have this feeling. God has really been showing me things and putting things into my life to say, hey, this is going to be a good year. We're already starting to see the beginnings of that. He told me to rest the latter part of this year. I had the surgery, and now things are really starting to come together, and I'm super, super excited. I am here for it, and I hope the same is for you. So before I dive into podcast trends that I'm seeing for 2023, I wanted to mention that I have 2 spots open for podcast coaching and strategy. So are you searching for some proven strategies for helping to market and grow your podcast? You want tips and tricks on how to grow effectively while engaging with your audience? Maybe you need some guidance in weighing through all the options when choosing new equipment, or you just need some solid advice for your many techie questions. So y'all, I am offering a free call to discuss all of this and to create some strategies and solutions for you. So don't let inexperience, fatigue, or intimidation hold you back. Let me help you. All you got to do is go to wildfirecreativecompany.com, click on podcast coaching. All you got to do is click the button that says, let me help you. And I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes for you. Okay, let's talk about some podcast trends that I am noticing for the year. At the end of every year, now this is not just for 2022, I do this every year for my business. I look at some of what's trending in podcasting. And I do this for my own self, but also for all of my clients. And this year is no different. Now, some are actually calling this the golden era of podcasting for over the next few years. And if the stats that I'm seeing are anything to go by, they could easily be correct on this. Now, y'all know that I always say you get to do your podcast the way that you and your audience wants and needs. And that doesn't change. But it never hurts to look at new trends, emerging technologies, maybe things to make our jobs easier. So let's dive in. Okay, first up, less polish, more authenticity. We all know that the world is beginning to open back up again, thanks COVID, and people are really seeking connection. People don't want to be taught at anymore or talked to anymore. They want connection and they want conversation. And I'm already starting to see lots of these less polished episodes or content, and this may become the norm, with that more conversational, off-the-cuff style being preferred as people look for friendly conversations to listen to. Now, I suspect podcasts that provide a genuine human connection with the host will become the favorites. People will want to get to know the person behind the content, the person behind the mic. And building a genuine connection with your listeners will be key for all podcast categories. Let me say that again. Building that genuine connection with your listeners is going to be key for all categories, but especially in presentational type content like business, faith, education, or even talking about podcasts. Okay, so the next thing, this is not a new thing. If you've been listening to Creative Cast for any length of time, or you've been through my quick launch podcast course, then you know I've been talking about this for a while now. There are many podcasts out there. So many podcasts out there right now. You want to stand out, right? By creating a niche for your podcast will show you have more extraordinary expertise in that subject matter and you really know your stuff. So think about it. If you're having issues, let's say you're having a fast heart rate or tachycardia. Okay, I'm using myself as an example here. And you need a doctor that can take care of those issues. Are you going to go to just any doctor? No. You're going to go to a specialist. Or more specifically, you're going to go to a cardiologist. If you went to your family physician, they're going to say, you need to see a specialist. So it's exactly the same thing when people are looking for new podcasts to listen to. Becoming niche specific essentially requires toning down your target to a smaller group. Now, I get a lot of people that think, wait a minute, this is going to cause me to lose out on downloads or views on my videos, or shouldn't I be broader to have a broader appeal? No. Being relevant and unique in a community of thousands is worth so much more than having millions of downloads or views on your videos that don't convert. Now, another thing about niche podcasts is that they are also helpful because they already know who the audience is and can decide early on whether it aligns with their target market or not. For example, if I was going to be bringing on a guest for the Creative Cast, I would not be bringing on Gary Vaynerchuk. He's not right for my audience. I know that. Now, one of the other things that I'm noticing is podcast ad spending, y'all. It is off the charts. So I was recently looking into this for another client and went over to my favorite research group, Edison Research. They said that podcast advertising revenue is expected to exceed, wait for it, y'all, $2 billion in 2023. Yes, that is $2 billion with a capital B. And by 2024, that ad revenue figure is set to hit the $4 billion mark. Now, despite a COVID-19 pandemic, a recession, and all the other things happening right now, happening in our society, podcast ad spending is growing steadily. So if you're not monetizing and you're ready to do that, you need to start thinking about it. You need to start implementing what that strategy is going to be. The reason for all of this is because podcast investments are not necessarily a high-ticket item, and they bring in decent ROI or return on investment. So many brands have stated that they know podcasting is a long-term game because it doesn't bring in the dollars as fast as social media marketing or even paid search. So let me drop a new stat on you, okay? Podcast ad revenue grows faster at 72% than the total internet ad revenue of 35%. Now, this trend is terrific news for businesses and podcasters alike. I've had lots of people ask me lately, well, isn't audio content dead because of all the video stuff? No! Y'all know you're going to get the honest truth from me. So if you're considering monetizing your podcast, whether it's Patreon, ad-free behind a paywall, older episodes behind a paywall, whatever it is, the stats are showing that now is the best time to do that. So if you have questions about monetizing, shoot me an email. Happy to answer all those questions. Here's another little interesting stat I just wanted to throw in there real quick. That most podcast listeners feel that the ads that they hear on a podcast influence their purchasing decisions. So that's because they have that connection that we talked about with their favorite podcaster because they trust them. They've had that engagement. They know that the podcaster is going to do what's right by them, not necessarily be in it for the almighty dollar, if you're doing it right. Okay, so let's talk about some of the markets that have been influenced by podcasting. Because podcasting has gone from kind of a niche medium to an absolutely mainstream phenomenon over the last few years. Now, much of this is, we should really give thanks to streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as the increasing popularity of smart speakers. And more people are listening to podcasts as they go about their regular day. And because of all of these things, I really believe that there's several potential markets that could be reached in the next few years. So the first one I see is that we're going to start seeing more podcasts aimed at children and young adults. Because as more parents realize the educational potential of podcasts, they're likely to look for content specifically designed for their child with the type of content they want their child exposed to. Now, I'm not going to get into specific politics of all this, but you guys know what I mean. And with this change, parents are going to have more of a choice of the content that their children are exposed to that aligns with their values. Now, secondly, I think we're going to start to see more countries embracing podcasts to share news and culture within their world. Because in recent years, we've seen a surge in the numbers of Turkish, Korean, and Chinese podcasts being produced. And I think that this will only increase in the years to come. So one of the things I look at all the time is content that's driven by data. And I absolutely love it because it creates a better user experience. Look, we all know podcast is gaining traction. And seeing how many people embrace podcasts and podcasting, the future can only hold more promise. The podcast experience gets elevated. So what about the podcast experience? The experience for the listener. What do they want? Well, you can elevate their podcast experience by using data, survey data, testing, and analytics. Now, again, this is not new information. I've been talking about this for some time. But, y'all, real talk here. If you're not using the data to drive what you need to do for your podcast, what are you waiting for? Now, I'm not just talking about analytics or how many downloads you have or how many times somebody viewed your video on Instagram about your podcast. No. I'm talking about getting contact with your actual audience and asking them what they want. Because content that resonates with your target audience is always high quality and desirable. You wouldn't even be producing a podcast if you didn't have someone listening, right? So collecting this real-time data or UX data or user experience data helps podcasters in understanding the listener's preferences, which then you turn into creating engaging content for the podcast. And if you're creating content based on the demands of your audience, you're going to cement their loyalty and their position with you to make a very eventful 2023. So what are ways that you can use this content? Well, you could do surveys on social media. You could do surveys via email. You can have a Zoom call with your audience and engage with them and say, what do you like? What do you don't like? Let's hear it. You also want to look at the analytics. What are the downloads? But you also want to look at what episodes did your listeners resonate with best. So let's say as you're looking at your analytics and you see that episode 42 really resonated with your audience. There's a lot of engagement on social media. There was a lot of chatter about it. People were really engaged with that episode. Look at all the information and then go, oh, maybe I need to do more of that. Take your top 10 episodes for the year. What are those telling you? Why did people resonate with those specific things? Because let's face it, y'all, at the heart of all podcasts are listeners. And providing them with the quality content that you're going to produce is going to not only keep you where you're at, but allow you to grow. Because you don't want to have a podcast that someone listens to. You want to be someone's favorite podcast. And this should be your primary goal even before the monetization plans kick in. Now, according to Podcast Insights and our friends over at Edison Research, here are what audiences are looking for. Generally speaking, this is not category specific. They want easy to navigate hosting sites, personalized experiences, downloadable content, and quality audio and minimal editing with a decent high quality mic. Now, to ensure your users the best experience, try asking them what they want. Like I said, surveys show that listeners don't mind answering questions if it's going to improve their listening experience. So if you haven't already, it's time to leverage the data. We're not basing this off emotion or what we think or what we feel. What is the data telling you what your listeners want? And then we can go from there. Okay, news you can use. I've got quite a few things for you. First off, let's talk about Megaphone. Now, Megaphone is Spotify's enterprise podcast host. So last week, Megaphone was not delivering any podcasts over the weekend. They stated it was a content delivery issue, which caused publishers not to be able to upload audio at all. So the following day, there was podcast playback issues. So podcasts were unavailable on various listener apps, and it took over 12 hours to fix. One podcaster that I know that uses Megaphone described it as a major outage, and it was the 6th one of the year. Something to be aware of. I just wanted to mention, if you're looking for new podcast hosts, and I get this question all the time, my two faves are Libsyn and Buzzsprout. Now, Libsyn, if you use the code WILDFIRE, you'll get 2 months free. If you want something that has a few more bells and whistles to it, check out Buzzsprout. All of these things in the show notes for you. Oh, and one more thing. I just saw this morning. Now, some of the guys who used to work for Twitter are launching a new social media app called Spill. It's very similar to Twitter from what I understand and what I've seen. But one of the perks is that if your content goes viral on their platform, they pay you. Pretty cool, right? Now, there's lots more information. I don't have an actual release date, and I will certainly update you as that information comes available. But if you're not a big fan of Twitter, like me, or just want to learn more, or maybe even reserve your handle, I'll put the link in the show notes for you, but you can go to spill-app.com/reserve. Now, ladies, I believe in each and every one of you. I don't want that imposter syndrome. I don't want imposter syndrome, overwhelm, or intimidating tech stop you from accomplishing your goals, whatever they are. Podcasts, personal, you want to open up a business, whatever it is. Don't let that stop you. In 2023, let's not play small anymore, y'all. Let's do the thing. Create the plan. Make it happen. You can do it. So let's continue our walk together through this journey so you can spend less time worrying about all the details and more time spreading your message, sharing your calling, but most importantly, sharing your story. Friends, Happy New Year from all of us here at Wildfire. I hope today's episode was helpful for you. Have a great New Year, and I will talk to you on Monday. Bye, y'all.